Wgop. What's going on, Pittsburgh? This is a town hall meeting with Congresswoman Summer Lee and Mayor Ed Gainey with SEIU Healthcare at SEIU headquarters in downtown Pittsburgh.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Lee. I'm an organizer with the Healthcare Workers Union, SEIU, Healthcare Pennsylvania. And just got to say first, just really grateful to be in the room with a lot of people who give me hope in the world. Like I said, organize with nurses and nursing home workers and healthcare workers, home care workers across the state who are trying to build their unions, grow their unions in a very hard time right now as workers' rights are under attack, corporate interests are given more and more leeway, the labor board is also being dismantled. I'm also about to, have my first baby very soon, thank you. Thanks all. But in a world where every day we see on the news that parents are being taken pretty violently and abruptly from their own children, from their pregnant wives, in a world where the future of public education is really uncertain, in a world where birthing and healthcare becomes more dangerous. So again, just grateful you're all here today. And also very grateful for Congresswoman Summer Lee and Mayor Ed Gainey. It really just can't be easy to be an elected leader in today's world who has your values, the values of people in this room. And we've seen time and time again that Congresswoman Lee, Mayor Gainey are just completely uncompromising in their willingness and ability to stand up for our communities in Pittsburgh and beyond. That's not easy to do. It's unfortunately all too rare in this world, and it's such a model of what elected leadership could be and should be in this world. So we're really lucky to have both of you with us in Pittsburgh and representing us beyond. And of course, whether we're able to resist the Trump agenda depends on all of us in this room. It's only going to happen if individuals and organizations and leaders comply. And so really looking forward to hearing from some other folks in the room about how they're organizing in our community to resist Trump's agenda and lead us forward to not only survive, but to rise above it all in this world. So we're first going to hear from Congresswoman Lee about what is happening in DC right now.
All right. Thank you so much. And to the mayor and to everyone who's here, right, these are times that call on us to not be inactive and not to, to sit back. But instead, it's a time where we kind of have to go outside of our comfort zone and be incredibly active. You said it, right? When I think about, for me, just personally, right? Be a congressperson. I mean, the answer 6 years ago was no, right? Would I ever have thought that I'd be a congressperson serving in a time where our country is facing the biggest crisis that we've ever had? A constitutional crisis, a democracy crisis, a crisis that is actually getting to the heart of whether or not or how this nation will exist into the future. I would have never have thought about it. I would have never have conceived it. But I think that a lot of us in these spaces could have conceived what could be possible if we watch or allow people who have fascist, racist, or xenophobic views run our government and run our country. And that's the moment that we're in right now. We talk a lot about the fact that we don't have the House. We don't have the Senate, we don't have the White House, and in many ways we don't have the Supreme Court. And the number one question that we get in this moment is what are we doing to fight back? Summer, what are you doing? What can we do? Is the second question that we get. And I think that the most important thing that we have to do is we have to get people good information. We have to help people to understand what's happening. There's so much coming down. We talk about the flooding of the zone. And for so many people in this room, you may have been impacted not in one way, but in several ways. And then oftentimes, if you're impacted in one way, you might not even be able to think about the ways you've been impacted in others. We have union workers who, whether or not you are a federal union worker, if there is an anti-union action taken against one, it's taken against all. We have federal workers, people who work in offices, not just in DC. There are federal workers here in Pittsburgh and our region who have lost their jobs. Others who are hanging on by a string as they get email after email asking them to do absurd things that they would never have to do if we had a professionalized president and White House and executive branch. We have federal workers who are being forced to go back into offices that they never even worked in the first place. Offices that don't make sense, right? Hoops upon hoops upon hoops. We have people in our region who have relied on NIH funding, our university systems, our research institutions that make this country what it is. We've been talking a lot about hard power in our federal government. We have an administration right now that believes that power is in force. Power is in masculinity. It's in exerting something over another country and making them feel small so that we feel big. But it's such an abuse and a misunderstanding of what actually makes our country powerful. So I bring these to our attention when we talk about what these executive orders actually do and what we have to be worried about. Because if we dismantle our public institutions, our education institutions, if we no longer are the leaders on science and research, then the best and brightest will not come to this country, then that is a national security threat. If we dismantle the Department of Education and we say that it's a state's rights, then what will happen is that states will not have more control over education. The taxpayers will have to pay more. Our localities will be bled dry. And we won't be able to not just monitor and oversee our education system, but it will have implications on business, on home ownerships, on the growth of our communities. These are the things that our federal government is not thinking about right now. And then we also, on top of that, have our budget implications. So we have 2 budgets coming up, right? So we have the one budget that we never passed, and we still haven't done it yet. That the deadline is now September 30th, where we're fighting back against custom Medicaid, you may have heard, and Social Security, and SNAP benefits, and veterans benefits. All of the things that we know undergird our society, make sure that our most marginalized are taken care of. And people will say, well, what are the Democrats doing? Okay, well, let's get into that. You don't have to think or wonder if ever a vote will come up that we're going to, take away Medicaid, where Summerlee will be. And to be completely honest, I don't think you have to wonder where a lot of us are going to be. But right now, when we talk about the slim margin, we have slim margins in the House. There's a reason why they are governing by executive order. And it's because the Republicans actually do not have enough discipline or control to actually get votes on themselves. So good or bad, right? We actually aren't passing a lot of bills right now. A lot of things aren't coming from the House because they don't have the votes either. But we know that there are a number of Republicans, especially here in Pennsylvania, at least 2, who really can't actually afford to be taking these votes. But I bring that up because I want to say, and I want to kind of comment to this before we get into the questions and pass it over, that right now, when we talk about what we can do and what we can't do, I just want to say that there is no bill that anybody in the House of Representatives can pass, can legislate, can write, that will be a check on Donald Trump's power that he will sign into law. And I think fundamentally, we all know that. We know that in this moment, voters, maybe not voters here in Pittsburgh, but voters around the country gave the Republicans power. And I'm not saying this to absolve us of power, because we're going to fight like hell every single day. Every day is guerrilla warfare. It's a battle, right? And there are a lot of Democrats and Republicans who don't know how to do guerrilla warfare, right? Even as we're building the plane as we fly, we're taking advice from our constituents, from our movement groups, from our labor unions, because that's how we're going to build what comes next. We're governing in a time that we have never experienced before, and we're going to have to try things that we've never done before, and we're going to fail sometimes because, again, guerrilla warfare. Every day we go to the House floor, it is a battle, and believe it or not, we win some of those battles. We win some of those battles, and some of those battles are just to keep us alive and keep us afloat until the next day. But that's how we're going to have to start to think about these things. But when I think about when people say that's the first thing, what are you doing? Well, we're fighting our warfare in our arena on the House floor, in our committees. I'm on a committee of oversight where we are trying to make sure that we're holding Donald Trump, and anybody else accountable. Even when they say that we can't subpoena as the minority party, we're fighting for that. I'm the ranking member of the Federal Law Enforcement Subcommittee on Oversight, which is why we want to know what's going on in El Salvador and Guantanamo Bay. We want to know what's going on with immigration policy. We want to know what's going on with ICE. And we want to make sure that our communities are safe from all of those things. But also, the real check and balance in our system is not going to be the House. I'm not saying that to absolve us of responsibility. It's not going to be the Senate. It ain't going to be the White House, and it ain't going to be the courts. It's going to be the people. as it has always been. So I want to come here and say these things to us because this is where we plan. We can talk about bills, we can talk about legislation, we can talk about strategy that we will implement in our government, but what we really need to do is start to organize and plan with our labor unions, with our civil liberties organizations, where we've had over about 40 lawsuits, many of them successful. That actually is a part of the plan too, and that is also a part of the Democratic Party. Yes, those lawsuits are a part of the plan. We always knew that we were going to have to rely on them, and we're going to have to talk about activism and movement work. And I say that because the reason why he's come after labor unions, the reason why he's come after education, all of these institutions is because that is the greatest check on someone who is moving to authoritarianism. If organized labor isn't able to come together, if the solidarity does not exist between our trades or our service industry unions or our federal unions, then we have a problem. And right now, we're going to have to spend a lot of effort and energy to make sure that we are getting our workforce ready. The biggest things that we have in power are going to be organized labor, organized money. And we, as Americans, are going to have to decide how we want to use that. And we are going to have to be very serious about that, because when we see fascism and authoritarianism, you typically only have about 2 years to stop the descent. And if we don't step up and do it, then it's going to take decades to build it back up. So right now, we're going to have to ask ourselves, what does it mean for us all to be ready? Not just your legislators who need to be too, but all of us collectively, and how we are going to work and interplay. I am a legislator who believes in the power of the outside. I believe in organizing. Yeah, I believe that when we have legislative power, we will do it and we should use it. But I also know that whether it's the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, or any other big piece of legislation, the abolition of slavery, it did not come from a president or a congressperson. It came from organized people on the outside and organized power. So as a legislator, I am committed not just to doing my job on the inside, but to making sure that we're also doing our job and our resources and our organizing capacity on the outside too.
Mayor Gainey, we'll come back to you in a minute after the speakers to hear the specifics of what you're doing, but would love to hear now just what you think of Congresswoman Lee said and why you're in the room today.
Who I believe? I believe in Summer Lee. Now, no, listen, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm always happy to be in the room with Summer Lee, Congresswoman Summer Lee, and listen to her speak and feed us about what's going on the federal level. I think the more that she gives us a dish to eat in regards to what's going on the federal level, it prepares us more on the local level. And so for me, it's always refreshing to be able to get that food and give me the thoughts that I need to make sure that we're leading properly at the city level. I remember the day after Donald Trump got elected, I couldn't even go to work because at the end of the day, it was just painful. It was painful because we understand what one man can do in regards to his perception and what he wants to do in the United States. And it had been the first time that we've been dictated to or ruled by an elected president and an appointed president from South Africa, but the president wanted to make a whole notion about Obama's birther, but got in the office and put a man from South Africa into a place to be able to dictate, be able to create Dodge, or be able to create some things at the end of the day will bring terror on America. And so locally, what we did on November 16th is we got all our advocacy groups together, whether the LGBTQIA, whether our civil rights groups, whether our unions, we were all in the room to talk about what we were going to do, how we was going to stand up. We talked about immigration. We talked about a lot of things that we know would have an impact in this region and would be able to hurt our people. I wanted us to have this conversation so everybody could feel each other's pain. See, I can't stand up until I understand the pain that you really feel. And I wanted our city to be able to feel each other's pain in a way that at the end of the day, we would rise up with unprecedented unity in order to fight against a demon that right now wants to destroy and destruct the whole fabric of America. And so what we've done from day one, we met again in December, we met again in January. Because at the end of the day, if we don't stand up, it's not about what they'll do. It's really not about what they'll do. It's about what we will allow them to do. It's not about how much trauma and terror they want to impact on whether it's immigration. It's about how we stand up to tell them that we are a nation of immigrants. We built America from an immigrant standpoint. So don't come after us with ICE creating terror in the name of public safety. Say what you want to do. Make sure that you understand that the more terror that you drive families through, the more terror that you divide families through, at the end of the day, don't create a safer world. Don't create a safer nation. What it does is divides and despise, and people will act out in a negative way if they feel that trauma is upon them. What we got to do is ensure that at the end of the day, we are standing up for everybody. We need unprecedented unity right now. This is the time where if you don't know other communities, get to know them. Don't judge them, know them. We got to make sure that we're fighting against all this. I was at the Pennsylvania press secretary in Harrisburg. They asked me about ICE. I said, we will not at all deal with ICE. We will reject it. The next day, my email looked like a ride at Kennywood. You know what I'm saying? There had to be about 100 emails. But it was important. They said, DEI, listen, Congresswoman Summer Lee or Mayor Ed Gainey are not here just because we black. We here because we've been trained. We have the knowledge. We have the wisdom. We went through the system. We are prepared because we studied this game. Yes, we need DEI because if you want to talk about years of being able to catch up, let's talk about the years that were so segregated in racism that we couldn't even get in the room. And so y'all said I could talk about the rest later. Here.
Gainey, want to pass it back to you. I know your administration's been doing a lot to protect immigrants, union workers, trans folks, and if you would just say a little bit about the details of what you've been doing.
So the one thing, you've heard me talk about ICE already, and the fact that we would not participate with ICE at all. And we've also come out with a policing, we've also talked about to our police and came out with a standard that our police will not participate with ICE as well. I think that's critical because at the end of the day, I don't want the neighbors to be scared of our police. What I want our police to do is protect our neighbors from ICE. And they do that by making sure that they don't participate with ICE. I think that's extremely, extremely important. Secondly, we will use the powers that we have to make sure that our LGBTQA friends, as well as our trans youth, are able to get the gender affirming care that they need. We have our lawyers look into it now to find out what we could do from a city perspective to deal with UPMC that we know is catering to Trump, because at the end of the day, they don't even want to pay their fair share or let people unionize in their own UPMC hospitals. So at the end of the day, all they really care about is themselves. So we have our law department looking to see how we can be able to help them. In regards to we've stood up for our housing and urban development, because we heard that at the end of the day they wanted to roll back discriminatory. I know Summer can go into it. They wanted to roll back discriminatory policies, but we signed an executive order that if you want to do business with us, you got to adhere to our anti-discrimination policies, which we control at the city level. So I'm not concerned about what they do in D.C. I'm concerned that they understand that if you want to do business with me, that you have to adhere to the anti-discrimination policies that we put in place. We stood with our advocate community when they were talking about closing the Social Security building down in East Liberty, because at the end of the day, that Social Security building stays so busy, it's become an asset to a community. It lets the community know what's going on, and if we allow that to close down, we would lose one of the best assets we have on the East End, and that would also be a detriment to our senior citizens that depend on that building in order to get their benefits, in order to get their information, in order to get what they need in order to succeed. If we don't stand for them who stand for us for so long, because without my seniors, I couldn't be here today. So at the end of the day, we got to stand for them. We stood up against Medicaid with State Rep Dan Miller when he had his event to make sure that we spoke out because we know exactly the impact of that in our region. We will use every disposal at our city to be able to deal with the Trump administration and how we can protect our residents. That's important to me. See, I understand how it feels. I understand how it feels to live in trauma. I understand how it feels to be discriminated against. I understand how it feels to feel like when you walk in a room, people looking at you just because you're different. See, I understand that. But I also understand the excitement about letting them know who I am. I also understand the excitement of getting to know communities that we don't know, but we grown up with a program mind of what we supposed to think of them because we have not given them the ability to be able to reach out and talk to us and let them know who we are and them to know who they are. It worries me about the Department of Education and what he can do in order to create a situation when we have a bigger shaft of has and have-nots. Of course we need to be concerned. But that's why I say in times like this, we need unprecedented unity. We need the type of unity where we got each other's back. And it starts right on your block. It starts right on your block. Do you know your neighbor? Do you know your neighbor? Because if you don't know your neighbor, ask yourself why. It's always going to be the power and the politics that we address. But we as a people have to do it together. You can't just say, you're the elected official, go do it. When we look back, if there's not an army behind us, if there's not an army beside us, then they don't care because they just see you by yourself. What can you do with one when you got to multiply the leaderships in every community to create an army? And in this army, you got to go get it every single day to let them know that we won't let you move back anti-discriminatory laws that we got in place to protect our people, that we won't let you roll back gender affirming care for our LGBTI community, that we won't let you roll back the immigration status with ICE that hurt people in our Latino community. That's up to us. So my administration will do everything in our power to make sure that we always stand up for the people. Because at the end of the day, now let me be honest, it ain't that I don't wake up scared some days. I do. We live in a different type of a world. And it is a very scary world. And sometimes you feel paralyzed that you can't move because you don't know what to do. But it's cool to be scared. I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's cool to be scared as long as you don't let it turn into fear. See, when you turn into fear, you can't move because you're paralyzed. You can be scared and get up and walk. Because I've had to walk through a lot of dark days being scared, but I never let it turn into fear. I'll allow my faith to always outshine any fear that I may have in me in order to make a world a better place. So I can feel your pain in order to experience the joy that we can achieve together. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Gainey. And I think, from our perspective as a labor union, when we have nurses bargaining contracts, nursing home workers walking out of their building, there's just never any doubt that Mayor Gainey is there, that Congresswoman Lee is there. And not just that they show up, but have managed to build a pretty incredible coalition across Southwest PA that's really able to do things in this part of the state. So we'll take a few questions from all of you in the room, and then we'll wrap up. Want to come back to Congresswoman Lee and Mayor Gainey with steps forward. But first, would love to hear from some of you in the room. Any questions for Congresswoman Lee, for Mayor Gainey about what's next or what's on your mind? If you could introduce yourself too.
Hello, Congressman Summer Lee, Mayor Gainey. My name is Jorge Palmas. I'm a case manager for Casa San Jose. My question to you guys is, what do you think will be the biggest challenge for our immigrant community here in the next 4 years in the city of Pittsburgh?
Thank you for that question. I'm actually happy you asked it because as I've been listening to the conversation, and this is not just this conversation, just the conversation at large about immigration. Oftentimes we are shifting. First of all, we pretend that immigration is a Latino issue. You know, which is another one of those ways that we isolate, that we silo. The reality is that immigration is an all of us issue. It is a black issue. Is it a brown issue? Is it an Asian issue? Is it an African issue? Is it a European issue? Because believe it or not, there are European immigrants here too, right? But it's not even just immigration for how you come, what documents you have. We also have refugees. There are people who are coming to our country for various reasons in various ways from various places. And if we are seeing it as a them issue, but not a country issue, not a moral issue, a humanity issue, then that is going to be the problem that we're going to have over the next 4 years. And I think that right now we have a real obligation and a real challenge of reclaiming a narrative, right? I've seen Democrats fall for the same trap that Republicans have been setting for a really long time, right? They do it first by going to the media, right? The way that they talk about things, right? We thought that we defeated it because in 2016, the Democrats built their whole foundation on being anti-separation of family, right? Anti-kids in cages, anti-building a wall, and then by the time we got to now, we're seeing Democrats who are afraid of losing their elections, who are afraid of the backlash from their communities, afraid of the narrative the rhetoric that's been drummed up. You hear it even in districts that aren't by a border, right? Oh, the border this, the border that. You live in Pittsburgh, right? The border, you live in Ohio. The Canadian border? Like, are you beefing with Lake Erie, right? Like, those are the type of rhetorics that permeate throughout the consciousness of America, because we see it on social media. We see it, we hear it on CNN, NBC, MSNBC, Fox News, everywhere. And if we as a people, as a collective of people who care about human rights, people who care about our neighbor, are not starting to shift that narrative, then the policies are never going to come to fruition. So someone asked me, I was actually just on a call with Immigrants List 2 days ago. We were just having an hour-long conversation about legislation, next steps, and they were asking me, what do we need to do? What are your colleagues going to do in 2026? I'm like, well, if 2026 comes, right? If it comes and it looks the way that our government looks now, if we have a majority, all these ifs. I was like, I don't believe that we can trust that the Democrats are just going to automatically be better. The anybody's, not Democrats, the Americans are going to be automatically better on immigration unless we lay the groundwork right now. So they asked me, like, why is the conversation different in Pittsburgh? You have a 82%, non-immigrant based district, or at least not non-first generation district, whatever the number is. And I was like, well, because Pittsburgh has 300,000 people in it, and we know that we need more. We need more because we recognize that our unions, our workforce are all a conglomerate of people who have come from various places. That's in the fabric of Western Pennsylvania. So the conversation goes easier. But I was like, but we're losing that conversation everywhere across the country, and not just the country, the world, not just America. You see in Europe, in France, in South Africa, and all these places, in India, and across the world, this nationalist, xenophobic approach to politics and to humanity and to immigration. And if we're going to kick back on it, we have to be just as loud, just as intentional, just as strategic. We are being wiped out on all media, y'all. Anybody who is left-leaning, if you are somebody who cares about humanity, you are being wiped out on social media. You're barely a blip on the radar on Twitter, X, on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Reddit, on any of these places. You're also being wiped out in legacy media, the newspapers, the local and the national news outlets. And what people are hearing is not from you. They're not hearing from people who want to tell the beautiful stories of their family members, their loved ones, their neighbors, their friends. They're hearing the horrific stories of Republicans trying to tie immigration status to criminality. They're hearing and they're seeing politicians who used to be good on it fold. So we're going to, that is the challenge. And if we want to set ourselves up for success, we have to lay the groundwork now. We have to seize the narrative. We have to remind people that if they will come, when they come, we know they will always come. If they'll come for a Palestinian student who's standing up to end harm to their own family, to advocate for their own family, their own lives. They'll do it for the person who has permanent status, and they'll send them to El Salvador and ignore the Supreme Court and the 9-0 ruling. Then they'll do it to a citizen too. If they'll do it to the trans child, they'll do it to the cis child, and they'll do it to anyone else, right? If they'll do it for the black person, they'll do it to the Jewish person. They'll do it to the Italian person and everybody else. Our liberation is tied together. And until we see each other as each other, we will not be able to win on any of our policies. So we have to build that solidarity. It is a muscle. We have to build it now, especially now when they're trying to keep us in silos. Because how can you think about immigration if you are a person who's worried about Medicaid cuts? How do you think about Medicaid cuts if you're a person who's worried about NIH cuts? How can you worry about NIH cuts if you're a person who's worried about my federal job being taken from me? If you are a black person who's worried about DEI policies impacting your ability to get into institutions, how do you worry about that if you're somebody who's worried about how you're going to feed your family tonight when SNAP benefits are cut? Right? They're trying to keep us siloed off because then you can't come together and join power. So we have to fight back. It is not just an immigration issue. It is an American issue. It is each and every one of ours.
That part.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luna Germain. I'm from Haiti. It's an honor to be with you all in your presence today. So my question for you as an immigrant and a mother is, what do you guys have any plan, or what are you doing to support the mental health and educational stability of children and of mixed status Haitian and Hispanic family who live in constant fear of separation or deportation in the city?
That's a beautiful question, because mental health is real. Mental health is real on so many different levels, yeah. And I can only feel where you're coming from. And so for me, I know what we've done is we've backlogged a lot of our resources in connection with County Exec Sarah Anna Morato to be able to provide the type of resources that's necessary to be able to speak to where you can get that level of help at, where we can make sure that the resources are available for you to be able to receive that type of help. But also, more importantly, that I see is where you can go get help. See, mental health is major, and a lot of times we don't even talk about mental health. And there's not a person in here today that don't deal with childhood scars in some way that impacts their mental health. And being in a situation right now where you're coming in worried about immigration, deportation, that also multiplies the trauma you already had. And so at the end of the day, it's about how do we get you the right resources to be able to exercise your mind and get them thoughts to be free. And so it's very important that when me and Sarah talked about, County Exec Anna Morato talked about coming together to backlog a lot of the funding that is needed in order to talk about resources that we can get you so that your mindset can be all right. That's what we're doing. And so if that's something that is in your mind right now, let's talk afterwards. And let's see if we can get you the type of assistance you need. Because the one thing I'm going to tell you, mental health is real. You understand what I'm saying? And if you don't get the help that you need, it don't go away, it multiplies. It don't add up, it multiplies. And you'll be wondering why every day you wake up with pain in your heart. And so if you need any type of assistance dealing with mental health, let's talk afterwards. And I can make sure that you get connected to the people you need to get connected to.
If I can just touch really quickly on the other part that you were talking about, the education piece. Two of the first things that Donald Trump did was, of course, the executive order around birthright citizenship. And then one of the most recent, I don't even know how you categorize recent. One of the more recent things he's done was the Department of Education. Both of those have serious implication for children in mixed status families or children who are immigrants themselves, in both ways, right? Is why you see us fighting like hell about it. People kept asking, like, some on Education and Labor Committee, people keep asking, like, why do you talk about the Department of Education so much? The reality is that the reason why Donald Trump is able to get away with so much that he does is because we don't know what we have to defend, right? We don't know what we're defending. So if he can convince you that something is actually not important or something is just not acting as intended, then he can get away with a lot, right? The Department of Education does a number of things, right? First of all, I'm going to go to the EO first. The first EO on birthright citizenship, on also changing where and how ICE can operate. There were what we call these sanctuary places. There was a time where schools, hospitals, churches were off limits. And what that's done is it's wreaked havoc on our communities. Not just because a child should never be worried about going to school and wondering if if ICE is going to come and question them. We have the examples, not in Pittsburgh, but in other places, of ICE going and trying to access a school and asking to speak to interview a child and saying and lying to school administration and saying that they had that the parents' permission, right? And the schools ended up having to fight back. So one of the most important things that we can do right now is it's a different type of know your rights, right? I know that folks at CASA understand that, right? It's a different type of know your rights, right? Because if these places are no longer off limits, now it implicates the front desk staff at the school or the hospital, right? It impacts whether or not that child will go and get treatment if they're sick or if they're ill, is they'll go to class. If they sit in class and they have anxiety the whole time that they're there, that they might go home and their dad may have been disappeared, right? So that's why it's so important that we do not drop the ball on this, that we do not allow this to just go off into the sunset and become a new norm. We have to fight back about that. As a Department of Education, the one thing that they have oversight over are children with disabilities. They have oversight over Title I schools that service children who come from disadvantaged and low-income backgrounds. And they're trying to dismantle the the Office of Civil Rights, right? That's where we keep the data, right? Is that school disproportionately impacting kids from this background? Are these kids getting the same opportunities as kids from the next zip code, right? That's where we get that data to then be able to direct funds, to be able to direct policy. And they want to take that away from us so that we can't do it as easily. So we have to be attuned to this one. The Department of Education is not a states' rights issue, right? It is just not a states' rights issue. The federal government has a role to play in the education of our children, even though it is a states' right. But if the federal government is not funding education at the rates that it needs to, and we know it already is not, then it's leaving it to the states, then it's leaving it to the localities, and it's basically saying that your poor child does not have a right to education. And there is nothing you can do about it. So that's why at the federal level, as somebody who is on the Ed and Labor Committee, the Labor Caucus, and cares about education, this is the fight of right now. We cannot seek ground on public education. That is the root of so much of what they're attempting to do.
I think we have room for one more question. Yep. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Congresswoman Lee and Mayor Gainey, for being here this afternoon. Thank you for reminding us that this is about all of us, that this is a united fight that we are fighting and that there is strength in numbers. My name is Jennifer Cash Wade. I am a community developer from Beltsuver. Yes. And we are doing some remarkable things in Beltsuver, revitalizing our community with the help and support of Mayor Gainey. What I want to know is we depend very heavily. We've had a lot of success. We are doing major development. We depend on funding from federal funds and state funds. I'm very concerned about what is going to happen if we're not able to prevent this man from cutting all of this funding. Thank you.
Yeah, the reality is that we should be concerned. Right, we are 3 months in, and the thing that we know most about his agenda is what he wants to cut, right? We've seen the attacks, the cuts, the cancellations. We've seen them claw back or take back dollars that have already been awarded to communities. We've seen that in Bridgeville, where they have a flood zone, and they already were awarded this money to be able to shore up the infrastructure to prevent flooding, and they found out a couple weeks ago that money has disappeared, right? We've seen that with, and that's from certain programs. So the problem is that it's like a piecemeal thing, right? From department to department, agency to agency, different programs are being attacked, different programs are being eliminated altogether, and other programs are being bolstered. The problem is we don't know which programs are being bolstered right now, right? We don't know what the actual agenda is. What does he want to fund? What is the Republicans' vision for all of America, not just urban areas? What is the agenda for suburban, exurban, and rural communities? What is the active agenda, right? Because at some point, once you've, cut the deficit or whatever they're trying to do, and they've gotten their tax cuts, What then, right? So right now, so much of their budget is going to tax cuts, right? And it's so hard to explain. Why are they cutting Medicaid, right? Because they need to fund the tax cuts for billionaires, right? Why are they cutting Social Security? They need to fund the tax cuts. Why are they taking back dollars from the infrastructure bill, from the bipartisan IRA, the Sustainable Environmental Climate Bill? Why are they doing that, right? We know, we have proof points that it works, especially in Western Pennsylvania. The projects that we were able to fund are generational. They are sustainable. They take into mind climate crisis. They consider the fact that Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, is a proof point that we can move from a heavy industrial past to an environmentally sustainable manufacturing future. That we can make and turn a corner from industries that are dying to industries that are life sustaining. From those types of industries that are polluting to eds and meds and robotics and automation and AI, which is frightening, but still nonetheless it is here, right? All of these industries that are miraculously coming to Pittsburgh, that are coming to Western Pennsylvania. And if they do it, and if we were to have been doing it right, the growth should actually include all of us. How, when these new industries are coming, are we sure that kids from Bellsuver feel like they can enter the robotics industry, that they can enter the science or research industry, but we cannot do it with these cuts. So yeah, we are absolutely worried about it. Our community project funding is still one source that we apparently still have available. It's open now. Please reach out to our staff if you have projects. Oftentimes the guidelines change. So sometimes, like last year, for instance, we found out at the very last minute that nonprofits couldn't qualify, but municipalities could, right? So these projects can span, some of them are infrastructure projects, capital projects, community projects. Like, these are the different type of projects that we get to kind of select on our own that is largely outside of the bureaucratic process that you would see from like an EPA or HUD or any of those things. We don't control them anymore. We have to outlast them. We have to make sure that we're not sustaining deeper cuts, and we got to protect the funding that we already have. But it's going to be a belt tightening era that we are in right now. Western Pennsylvania is going to be harmed because of Donald Trump. We were excelling and we were moving forward on lead pipe remediation. We were leading the country in getting that done through PWSA. We were leading the country on infrastructure projects that reconnect communities that have been historically disconnected through racist highway projects and transportation projects. We were doing that work here. So as we get information of what type of programs will be funded, what will fit, we're going to move forward asking for every dollar, just like we did before. We're going to move forward, trying to bolster all the applications that are coming from our people to help you all with that. Our office is still here to do that work. Our office will still be your advocate when we go and we talk to them. We're making and building new relationships with the new HUD and the new this agency, the new that agency. So we're doing that work. Our staff is still doing that work. Obviously, there's not a lot of continuity from last term, but there is some, right? So we're doing that so that we can still try to position Western Pennsylvania as competitive for whatever loans and whatever dollars are going to be coming down. So we would love to talk to you all more. Our municipalities, we have about 65 of them, and we're trying to make our way through all of them. And we know that of the 32 city wards and the however many city neighborhoods, that each of you all think that you are your own municipality too. And we're getting there, and we're coming, and you can also come to us. So let's talk through some of these projects that we have. Let's talk about the successes so that we can tell the story to Trump and whoever else. Will tell it to his face, and we'll definitely tell it to McCormick's face, because I gotta believe that McCormick does not want the economy of Western Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania as a whole to collapse. So this is the last thing I'm gonna leave you with. Right now, these Republicans, these Democrats, these independents, these everybody's are asking themselves if they're more afraid of Donald Trump or if they're more afraid of you. Right. And we are gonna have to assert that they should be more afraid of you. They should be more afraid of us. And that goes for every process.
But I just want to be honest. I think we need to do more of these. Yeah. I do. I think we need to do more of these. I think doing things like this allows our citizens to know exactly, one, what your elected officials are doing, and two, exactly what's going on from federal to local. I think it's extremely important. Because I don't know about y'all, but I learned something new today about the federal government. That's why we expedited a lot of our grants, before Trump got in there, and even after he got in, we expedited our federal grants. We also worked together, me and Congresswoman Lee, to bring $50 million back to do Bedford dwellings. We've had to do the things that we've had to do to ensure that we're moving forward. But the one thing that I always say, because communications in this city has always been fractured, that it's times like this that we come together to be able to talk about what everybody is doing. I mean, you got to hear from 3 advocates today that are powerful in their own respects about what they're doing. So I'm also going to encourage us to do one thing. When you go home, tell somebody that you know is not in the know what's going on. You understand? You better know it, Marvin Gaye. Tell somebody that's not in the know what's going on. Because listen what I'm saying. Most people get misinformation through Facebook, through X, through Instagram. And they don't know, I didn't, make sure I know I say that right there. Maybe they had me saying I said something like that. Wasn't me this time. But anyway, I'm only sharing that because there's a lot of places I go that I know most people on my block don't even know what's going on. They really don't. And sometimes we go to them like, why don't you know? Instead of having a conversation with a friend about what you can tell them. I just think that's so important because sometimes the in crowd becomes so judgmental. Right. We judge people for what they don't know or what we feel they should know. Why they living life? Why they living life? Why life is life, right? But I think we have a responsibility to not be professors, but be teachers. And be able to educate people about what's going on and resources that they may need in order to help their family and friends. Like if we're not spreading the good news, then we're just as bad as the misinformation. So I encourage all of us as we leave here today, everybody got a friend that you know is not in the know. Now don't call them up like, I got something to tell you. You know what I mean? Don't do that. But the next time y'all having conversation, it'll come up. And now they're more open to receive you than reject you. And I believe that we have to organize something like this in another quarter. Because by quarter, things will change. But by knowledge, we can empower the people for unprecedented unity to stand up to Donald Trump and say no more.
So Congresswoman Lee, we know you're in DC fighting for us every day. Mayor Gainey, you're in Pittsburgh fighting for us every day. Just anything else you want us to know about your strategy moving forward? We know you're talking to each other every day and coordinating. Anything we should have our ears open for and, as we move forward, anything that we should be doing? And then I'll pass it to you, Jaime.
Yeah. You'll be hearing from us consistently, right? Please follow us on all of our socials. Subscribe if you're in my district. Subscribe to our newsletter. That's where we're keeping people up to date on things because stuff is happening in real time. Things are happening fast and it's a lot, right? So we want to be a resource to help you all to go through this information, right? To understand it, to make sense of it, and to plan around it. The thing that I will ask people, like, know that we're in DC fighting. I'm in DC fighting. We're in DC fighting every day. And every day we go back against that guerrilla warfare. But right now it's time to start to fortify home. And it's time to start to get ready. An old African proverb, stay ready so you don't got to get ready. It might not be an African one. It might be an African-American proverb. African-American proverb, stay ready so you ain't got to get ready. So we're up in a union hall right now. Every time our union sibling leaders come, they say, well, what can we do? I'm like, you know what? You need to be getting your membership ready at every level. What does that look like? Well, we talked about the disinformation that's coming in. Disinformation is intentional. Understand that disinformation is intentional. It is chaotic. It is created to keep you destabilized, and it's created to then permeate through our government because we are now sitting ducks. Because we're not able to make head or tail or north or south of what's coming before us. We need to help and be helpful and be good, trustworthy sources of information for our memberships, for our community groups. So not just for our unions, for our community groups, our community leaders. We all have to be good sources of information for people right now. People need to know where they can go and they need to be able to trust it. So we need to be able to get ready for that. So whatever we're doing, when laws come down or when passed or something happens in the Congress or the House or the State House or the county or the city, Be able to call your membership, be able to call your community together to go over it, to talk about it in a helpful way, not in a judgy way, right? Because that's how we prepare. Be able to talk about what solidarity looks like in times of authoritarianism and fascism. Learn history, right? Because we are not in a unique situation, America. Other countries have been through what we have been through before. There are lessons to learn from them, but there are also lessons to learn from their resistance. Resistance will not look the same as it did in 1965 as it will in 2025, and that is okay. It is courage to explore what it has to look like now to meet this moment. So there will be trial and error. Get connected. That's the second thing. Even outside of your organizations, outside of your unions, outside of your churches, your synagogues, your mosques, your families, get connected to the organizations and the movements that are doing the things that you care about. Yes, they all are not perfect. We know. They're not perfect. That's because no one's led by perfect people. And there are better people to come. So mentor, train, get ready, but stay connected, right? Know who are the organizations that are doing the mutual aid, who are the organizations that are doing civil liberties work. Know who those organizations are. Know when there are lobbying days. Know what your lobbyists are lobbying us about, y'all. Know what them people. Know why them people keep coming to my office. Know why they can't get in, right? Know why they cannot get in. Because there are people who are advocating for the direction that we're going in, because they have access to members of Congress, they have access to senators, they have access to mayors and state reps. We got to know what their game is. So I think those are the things that I'm asking people to do. And I know it doesn't feel like a lot, but it actually is. It actually is. It is a lot. There's an intentionality in deciding to be more connected so that we can be more ready. But that's what we have to do right now. There are going to be moments that are going to be beyond the pale. Right? We're going to see imagery that should change you, imagery that should impact you, right? Imagery that should scare you, but it should also motivate you to change. I'm going to leave you with this right now. We are, whether we like it or not, or we're comfortable or not, we are entering moments that we have never experienced before. The country as we know it may never exist the way that it had. And the reality is that the way that the country had existed was never its best form anyways. And that's frightening, right? It's frightening. We don't know what's going to come next. But what we do know is that something is going to come next. And I'm telling you this because there are people who are trying to write what will come next. They are attempting to build what will happen next. And we know those type of people. They've been putting their hands in this for decades to be ready for this moment. The moment is here to build what comes next. My argument is that we should be fighting harder than they are to be the author of what is next, to be the builders of what are next. Because if we are not the ones who build it, then they are building it, but it's getting built one way or another. They will not build the society that looks like this room, that cares about what this room cares about. They will not build that society. So if you don't want it to be what they want it to be, then it has to be you. It cannot be waiting for somebody. It has to be you. So I take encouragement in that, not discouragement. I'm not depressed by that. I am encouraged by that. We were built for such a time as this. This was the moment. Everybody who said they wanted something different from society, this is the moment. So get ready. Get ready, because we need you in Fighting Trim right now.
Okay, all right. Give her a round of applause. Come on, come on, come on. So I want to give a plug out too. You know, if you want to follow us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram. If you definitely subscribe to our newsletter, if you want to see that or you want to know about it, Stephanie Gagney's in the audience. Let's make sure that we talk to Stephanie Gagney about what's going on. I'm gonna say this. I agree that there's no time like right now. And I think this time is coming for quite some time. See, the browning of America is real. That's a reality, and they seen it coming. And for power, it scares them. Because power don't want change. Power don't want people united. Power wants to be able to oppress and suppress everything that comes out so that they can control the narrative, they can control the media, they can control they control the things that program your mind. And when you allow people to enter in your mind by watching the news every day and believing what the news say every day, reading the paper and believing what the paper say every day, and not doing your own research, not finding out for yourself what the truth is, then you will always be led by a program controlled by a conglomerate that wants you to believe the narrative that they want you to believe, because there's power in their interest. As long as we talk about the issues, they don't care. They don't care if we talk about issues. We've been talking about the same issues for generations and generations, and academia and all them will clap and say, oh, that's a wonderful conversation. But it's a difference when you move the conversation from issues to interests. Because interest means that there's a rate of return. And when people come together in order to fight for the interests of everybody, regardless of what community you come from, if you fight for the interests of your neighbor, won't you be my neighbor? I will fight for that interest. You will change the game, because what they can't stop people coming together. They can't stop people working together. But do we know each other? Or do we just judge based on what we see on television? We got to be in a position and know that I want to know who you are. I want you to know who I am. Don't know me based on what they programmed you to tell. Know me because we developed a friendship and we know one another. Listen, I think Summer's right. Power is scared. When you see America coming together, when you see the browning of America, you feel your interest slipping away. And when you feel your interest slipping away, the 1% will always be scared. So why don't we come together so that they can live in fear? As long as we come together, we'll be all right. See, so I'm going to recommend something, right? The next time we meet like this, why don't we meet in an underserved community where we know knowledge don't get to? What if we inspired the underserved community with knowledge and not healthy food that Summer was delivering? What if they started to see themselves different because the knowledge that they getting was not what they get every day on the block? What would the army look like? So next time we have this, let's have it in an underserved neighborhood.